Good evening, everyone. Council meeting, August 8th, 2023. I'll stand and pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And man, roll call, please.
Council President Michael Platt.
President.
Councilperson Joseph Day.
Here.
Councilman Raymond Zabaka.
Here.
Councilperson Andrew Zell.
Here.
Councilperson Suzanne Sauer.
Here.
Also at present are Chief of Police Richard McCabe, City Treasurer Janet Carlin, City Solicitor Max Walton, City Planner, pardon me, and Mayor like Valerie Leary.
We have a motion to approve the minutes from July 11th, 2023 and August 1st, 2023. So,
I have one minor
Okay.
correction to it's the same correction in 5 different places. On the June 13th minutes on pages 6 and 7, the
Right.
Division of Fish and Wildlife, and in the first paragraph, it says it's correctly abbreviated DFW, but every place else on the page it's shown as DWF. It's just a petty typo, but I figured we should get it fixed. Sure.
motion to approve the minutes as amended.
So moved.
Do I have a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Corporate treasurer, please.
This is the unaudited treasurer's report as of 31st, 2023. So unrestricted funds, $8,567,799.41. Total restricted funds, $1,938,098.56. Total cash in the accounts, $10,505,897.97.
Any questions for Trevor? No.
I just wanted to mention, I don't know whether anybody else saw it, and I questioned it. At this point last year, we were at 9% in receipt of the money's coming in for taxes. This year, it's only 4%, but we had the file coming from the county was later this year, and the bills didn't get out. It was finally as they usually are. And so that's the reason. Right now, we are at $311,000.
Do you think that mailing was the only problem?
Yes.
Any other questions? Motion to approve the treasurer's report.
So moved.
All in favor? Or a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Mr. Barthel is not in tonight. She did send me some notes. Signs on Delaware Street that mentioned they were reworded. Received final approval from Denrec to move forward with the floating pier. We just have to sign some leases. Myself, President Toner from the trust, Mr. Barthel, and later the city designer went out to the Heritage and we marked off a spot for the dog park. So wanted to get approved of that. So we're just waiting on the approval of some designs. Contacted stage 2 manufacturing. This was a manufacturer recommended by the city of Wilmington for production specs for the bandstand. Going to meet with a local production company and for consultant direction. He didn't consulted with Will Matco and doing a traffic study on 7th Street. Chris Rogers can add some like that if you're prepared, sir. from Peter Hague, Del Dot, concerning Delaware Street. Bill received FHAW funding approval for Delaware Street, Sixth Street, or today. Signed staff are packaged, being packaged, and all documents together. We'll start coordinating with. That's all signal construction. Staff is scheduled to work. I'll keep you posted as schedules are available. Mr. Barthel did ask to have the discussion about having Fifth Street Fifth to Sixth Street and all the way up to Perry cutoff pays. And that's all he has.
Excuse me, maybe I missed something, but what Mr. Hague said from Del Dot, they got the funding for which?
The traffic, to remove the traffic.
To take out the.
Yeah.
Okay. And repave.
Correct. Well, the repaving is in negotiation. Chief, do you have anything for us tonight?
Anything that should be relatively brief. Our report's been posted on our website. You can see the entirety there. Just two brief announcements. One is that, and I think it's all on our Facebook page. You remember back in April, we were investigating home invasion at Steamers Landing for the help. We made 2 arrests since then. 2 juveniles have been arrested. Both were arrested at the end of July. Both were transferred to Department of Corrections in Ovarian. So that it took some time. It was an active investigation by our detective. They did a lot of work together. And then the last thing I have is we last Thursday we joined CCD's that's the community collaborative in collaboration with Delaware nonprofit group that works with local kids around here. They had a summer camp they sponsored. We were honored to be there one day. We helped cook. We had an emergency, so the whole fire department, our grill wasn't working. They were there. And I was 5 minutes and burgers up to run. So they're amazing. But I bring this up to say that we're still collecting backpacks and school supplies. We do this every year. Typically, we host or Goodwill hosts an event where folks come in and get the stuff. The CCD visit kind of gave us pause to think that maybe we should put the 2 together next year. So these are kids. These are our kids that. This camp benefits folks that parents have to work, they've got no other option, so they provide this camp for these kids. Their last day camp might be a good place to start to deliver some of this. So we're still collecting supplies until the 18th. We're doing pretty well to stand. So
Any questions for the chief? You can take monetary donations. Do you want to do for
I think for this initiative supplies, but I can check with Captain Sugar. She's got a separate line that fund that manages a lot of these community projects.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
I'm sorry. Can we drop off supplies at the firehouse or the police station or both or?
Drop them off at the police department. I'm not sure if the fire department. I mean, I'm sure they'd be glad that we could coordinate with.
Okay. Thank you.
Council communications, Saunders, anything?
Yeah, I had a couple of things. First, I'd like to congratulate Ms. Leary and all the other candidates for mayor. They've all ran good races and with a narrow margin, but we have a new mayor. I'd also like to thank all the members of the Board of Election and the poll workers because the margin was so slight that made their task more difficult. And I could see them when I was sitting here checking, double checking, making sure that it was all done correctly. I'd also like to thank the MSC. A week ago Saturday, we had a power outage and ours lasted only 2 hours, whereas there are people in northern Newcastle County who are still out since last night. So we have a good crew here and we should count ourselves lucky. And let's see. And then finally, a couple of months ago, we talked about some revisions to the criteria in our code for people filing as candidates for elections. And at that point, the ordinance didn't get a second. but I've worked with it and prepared some revisions. And it was inadvertently left off tonight's agenda, but I hope it'll be on next month's and we can have the first reading. But just to summarize briefly, my amendments make provision for electronic filing. They also call for the filing form that candidates sign, certifying that they meet all the requirements set forth in either Delaware Code or the Charter of the City of Newcastle for holding municipal office. And there are only 4 of them. You have to be at least 21 years old. You have to have been a resident of the city for at least 2 years. You have to be a registered voter in the state of Delaware and have never been convicted of a felony. And so if they certify to that on their form, absent evidence to the contrary, that will be, if this is passed, would be accepted. The one check would be to check the voter registration list, which verifies the name and address in Newcastle and has a birth date. So if we thought somebody wasn't quite 21, that would be a way of checking that out. But other than that, unless someone produced some solid evidence, that would be the end of the discussion. And I also discovered in reviewing the Delaware Code for candidates for municipal elections that the Delaware Code provides, should there be any deficiency in a candidate's filing, and I added, or evidence raising a question of their qualifications, the city administrator or a designated official will notify the candidate immediately, and the candidate would then have 2 business days to remedy the deficiency and or provide the proof. And even if that 2 days pushes them beyond the deadline for the election, and that is specified in Delaware Code. So I thought it would be helpful to get that into our code, just so it was very clear to everyone who might be filing for election. So hopefully we'll be discussing this next month.
If I can, I do apologize. Like I said, I get probably 50 emails a
I'm
day.
sure.
Sometimes
I mean,
I do.
my point in waiting till now was we'll make this decision when there's no pending election, no pending candidates. We're just making the decision about how we want to proceed with future elections. And if everything goes well, we won't have one until 2025. So that's all. Thank you, Mr. Pyle.
Mr. Zells.
I just have one item, and it's just more of a question, is tourism, tourism here, anything update on, what's going on with their property?
I understand she's had a couple of meetings with Mr. Barthel. My suggestion there would be email him. If there are. Don't have. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Councilman, is the council, people would please speak loud.
Okay,
Sorry.
Thank you.
good enough. Just email him directly or give him a call tomorrow.
All right.
He is on work at home. He's at the Mr. Day.
Just a couple things. I was made aware of, that the proposed ordinance that I was submitted tonight, ordinance number 540, was not available online. Tonight's only a first reading anyway, but I did want to bring that up, just to make sure that we do everything we need to do so that there's no problems with that. I'd also like to, congratulate, Mayor-elect Leary and thank all the candidates that ran, and thank the Board of Election. I think, they do a great job and not always, fun, but they do, service, a great service to the city. That's it.
Mr. Day, where that goes on, that it wasn't the website, that administration, but the next is the first reading by title only, and then it goes to public hearing, and then it goes to the second reading of those after that, so the fee time is public.
Thank you.
Sure. Mr. Spot.
Good evening, everybody. Just have two things. Really wanted to congratulate all the candidates for running a very successful campaigns. Ms. Mayor-elect Leary, congratulations, and thank you everybody for voting. I was really positively surprised that we had such a great turnout for the special election and this time of the year as well. So thank you for voting, ahead of time or in person this past Saturday. It was great to see that. And thank you to the Board of Elections for your diligent work. I see some of you here in the room. Your work is appreciated with all the elections we had recently. And the other update is just about playground. Since the last meeting that we had here, we had a playground subcommittee meeting as well, at which I brought up the items about slides that were not part of the phase one. And what playground subcommittee decided was to pilot the new equipment that's being installed at Battery Park and then see if the replacement for the slides are needed additionally. So that would be additionally introduced in one of the council meetings later in the year if that's the case. Right. Is that good recollection?
Absolutely.
That is that's all I have.
Can I just ask a question? I did see some emails. That committee's going to meet at meeting basis now. I mean, if you-
Correct. So the last thing about the playground subcommittee is that the work of this subcommittee has been to work on finding the funding and ideas and, stakeholder support for the playground here. And that work has been completed. Now there's a phase two of the project, but there's a lot of work to be done there as well. So at this point, the subcommittee is just going to meet as needed. So we're going to finish up phase one and start planning for phase two, but it won't be a monthly meeting going forward anymore.
Their time on for the first phase.
Yeah, so the installation of this equipment is supposed to be July or August. So at the end of this month is fully expecting for the playground to be completed.
I know I've had to weigh it, and I didn't have.
Absolutely.
This is going.
I have a question also. Is the committee going to start reviewing the other playgrounds in the other parts of the city? Because some of them need serious revamping too.
It has already reviewed and, reached out to the communities about the ideas. We had a meeting at the library and we had stakeholders from several neighborhoods present. One of the things that we have not been able to do is find a leader from each neighborhood to be a partner on these projects. So I invite everybody here who is living in other neighborhoods with a playground that needs updating to reach out to Ms. Swift, Suzanne Swift, or myself. I'm happy to connect you with her because at this point it's kind of like stalemate where we have initial meeting notes that we have people provide, but now we need somebody to champion for those neighborhoods together with this subcommittee in order for these ideas to flourish. So
Thank you.
yeah, absolutely.
A couple of things for the playground, I do like to go jumping right into that then. I was asked by some of the neighbors of Van Dyke, there's a basketball court that's back there that's abandoned pretty much. It may take a little bit of the money to expand the blacktop to turn it into a pickleball. So it's something. I'm afraid to walk that dog at times. So that's something I think we want to discuss with the city administrator, at least maybe get a bit. I know we had a blacktopping machine at one time, such a city to do it. The cost would be that much. It's worth looking into. And I'd also like to address a letter that was written to the Newcastle Weekly on August 2nd, signed by 8 people. I only recognized one of the names, and that was Susan Hagar. The only reason I recognize that name is because she's been spreading a pretty nasty email from back in April. That was full of lies, especially the lies about my wife and I. And now that the elections are over, she will be hearing from our attorney. Then I go into this letter as a bunch of lies. It was stated in the letter that I spent $7,500. I did not spend $7,500. City of Newcastle did through the directions of the city administrator. Okay, there was an employee problem, and that's all I can talk about. That's all I'm going to go into. But I did not spend that money. And if the city attorney and the city administrator thought it was worthwhile, it was worthwhile. Now, I don't understand why that wasn't fact checked by the Newcastle Weekly. I just don't understand that. Second line thing. I find it funny because they continue to, and they actually underline it, saying it had to be approved by the full council, that investigation. Well, council does not get into daily operations of business. If there's an employee problem, the city administrator handles that. That's how that's handled. Once again, that lie was not fact checked. Okay. The next misrepresentation was that there's no ordinance. That's kind of true. There is no ordinance, but there's been a precedent set. It was deviated from, and That's what this, all this is confusion is about. Once again, never, ever fact checked by the week. Well, Mary, so I apologize. The reason I mentioned this was never fact checked by the weekly, because on July 17th, my wife sent a letter to Newcastle Weekly. And she was told it could be printed, but you shouldn't print it. She was told in an email that the chief would be offended if it was written. Now, this letter mentioned no names. It did say police chief, but it could be the police chief of Timbuktu. It never mentioned a name. It never mentioned the candidate's name. And then at 9 o'clock at night, Miss Gorman calls my wife and says, I'll print your letter, but I talked to the chief of police and there's going to be backlash. And my wife said, what kind of backlash? She says, I don't know, but Rick's really upset. Now I want to pause there for a second. Chief, I don't mean to drag you into this, sir, but you attacked my wife. Fair game. If you want to defend yourself after this, feel free. Okay, but I'm not going to go there. Then she just kept saying there will be repercussions.
Bullshit. That's new.
Yeah.
Right. She didn't explain it. That's my.
Now but no, you continue on to say that the chief said this. And something, I'm gonna play this at the Mercury on Thursday afternoon. Okay, so.
Really the moral for all this.
Yeah, it is. Yes, it is.
Leadership.
My time. Why wasn't anything else fact checked? Why didn't you fact check that letter? Because you're fired.
You spent 7,500 hours illegal.
No, I didn't. I said that's what it cost. I said that's what it cost the city. I never said she spent.
For you.
Oh, Dan Goodwin. What kind of reporter are you?
Okay.
Obviously, when you threatened my wife with the chief's reason,
You are so full of it. Amy and I made up and you know it. It's full.
No,
You're lying in your teeth.
it's your words. You're on tape.
Go ahead, pull it out.
You're on tape.
Point of order, Mr. President. I didn't say nothing about the chief.
Hold on.
There's no debate.
Hold on.
This is my time, sir, if you don't mind.
Hold on. You have your time. Shouldn't be any comments from the gallery.
Thank
There
you.
will be public comment, which people can respond to at that time.
And thank you. I'm just going to end that just saying that's how biased that paper is. If you're on one side, bam. If you're on the next side, you're not printed. And I got the emails from Ms. Gormley to prove it also. Okay, at this point, we'll get a public comments.
Okay, she hasn't started to speak yet. We missed the proclamation. We'll turn this down. You want to do that after public comment?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, just so we don't forget.
Got a little plan on my head.
It is. Sorry. Is someone keeping the time?
Oh, I vote. Or do you want to do it?
Well, it doesn't matter. As long as somebody.
My name is Tara Hayward. I live at 14th Third Street. And sure, I would be happy to. My husband and I moved to Newcastle 5 years ago, and we're very proud to call this town our home. I've worked as an election officer, local worker, for the past 3 elections, and this work is very important to me. It's a way to give back to my community and to connect with the people who live in it. I'm very proud of the work that was carried out by my fellow election officers and members of the Board of Election on the August 5th special election. It ran smoothly and it ran efficiently. It came as a surprise Saturday night when I learned that there were comments made on a public forum seemingly calling into question the integrity of the election. It was even more surprising to learn that these comments, some of them, were made by elected officials. The state of Delaware mandates that all election officers attend training before each election to ensure they perform their duties impartially, follow the law, and do not interfere with voting and election administration. I have attended 3 of these training sessions. And I can tell you that every person who worked the election followed the prescribed guidelines and best practices and did so with utmost seriousness. There were many instances where voters asked for assistance with the voting machines, and we were able to assist them following the policies and procedures we learned in training. If you saw more than one election officer helping someone with a voting machine, perhaps from within the curtain, we were following procedure. In order for elections to run smoothly, it's critical that states and localities recruit a sufficient number of election officers. In the past few years, the U.S. has faced poll worker shortages amidst the COVID-19 pandemic and concerns of violence against elections employees and volunteers due to baseless accusations of voter fraud. I ask that you, our elected officials, take a step back before making any such public statements. Otherwise, you do a disservice to the community and our democracy. Thank you.
Thank you. Wait.
My name is Terry Buchanan. I'm Terry Foreman, West Foreman. Thank you. And several months ago, Mr. Platt, you called me and said that you found emails that Ms. Leary had complained about Public Works, about the police officers, and that she tried to fix a ticket. I have since found out that that is against the law because she is an elected official.
This email.
I didn't see the email. You told me about the email. Is it legal to look at an ex-elected official's email? Okay, you don't have to answer me, but I would like to lodge a complaint. Second, when I told you to ask if in fact it was a felony that kept Phil Gross from being on the ballot, you said, yes, it was. But wait a minute, why wouldn't you print what I said about ballot?
It's not what I said.
And I said, she wasn't arrested and she didn't do anything illegal. You said, forget it, forget my comment, no comment. Your anger is showing and it ain't looking good.
Thank you for your comments.
Bill Gross, 1301 13th Street. I concur on biasness of the weekly. I have emails, I have proof, where she has definitely said, I will not print this because you spew hate and lies throughout the community. But yet she'll let other people that have been spewing hate about all different people's races and choices in life. So I'm going to ask each of council members to put together a resolution making sure that she's not an official person putting any information from the city in her paper. She has lied. She has manipulated elections, people's opinions, and everything else. And I have proof from her emails. Laugh. Go ahead and laugh.
Easy.
You're a liar.
Point of order.
And moving on to the next thing. Are any of the council people aware or have seen a proposed drawing for a Mayoral project today? Have you seen any drawings or
We have to this question.
any background?
Hey, Phil, there's normally not comments.
Okay, well,
Not
I'm gonna put
stonewalling
it-
you.
okay.
Email them and if they want to answer.
Okay, I'm gonna
they
put
can.
a formal complaint and request in because something doesn't smell right around that project. And I think some people know. Next subject, I've been assaulted, offensively touched by Ms. Buchanan's son, stalked, cyberbullied, and verbally attacked many a times over the 6-7 years. But I can tell you, this has gone way too far, being set up for picking up signs, election signs. And it will come out court because I'm going to subpoena Ms. Leary Ms. Buchanan, her husband, and you. Just so you know, you will be coming to court along with me. And the truth will come out, but we got to stop this monopoly of help and power and distribute it evenly throughout the surrounding communities, because that's not been happening at all. Thank you.
Sir, introduce yourself and where you're from and sign in, please.
My name's Joseph Octavio. I live on School Street. I'm here to talk about School Street. I talked to Jeff, about speed bumps, stuff like that, because of the traffic. So I was told I had to come down here and see you guys about it. That's why I'm here. And, birds there, there's rains, there's mud all in the street. There's mud on top of the sidewalk. Sidewalks all lost it down, can't walk down. So that's why I'm here.
You have talked to city administrator, that you just spoke to Jeff.
Talk to Jeff and he told me to come here.
Let's look into it.
What's that?
Let us look into it. Okay.
My name is Michael Dorothy. I live at 910 Gray Street. My wife died 2.5 years ago. When she did, I bought a house at 907 Gray Street for her daughter and her 2 grandchildren, which they moved into. But on the back part of my house was an extra lot that butts up next to Joey's house on School Street. So I went to Mr. Bergstrom and said, how can I separate these two things? Joey wants to buy it, so he protects his side of the property. Year and a half later, oh, it's a very simple thing. Then it wasn't so simple. Then I had to have a surveyor. That cost me $5 grand. It's all done. My lawyer brings it to them, hands it to them, and Mr. Bergstrom says it's perfect. It's wonderful. He then goes on vacation. And when he goes on vacation, his people drop the ball and do not present it. So when they don't present it, you people, whoever you people are, get a new lawyer. And this new lawyer says, oh, that's no good. Now you need a variance. That's going to cost you a few $1,000s more. We're not trying to build anything on this piece of property. All we're trying to do is separate it so Joey can have the piece of property behind my house, which is on School Street next to it.
Your address again.
Excuse me? I wear hearing aids on. Pardon me.
Okay. And Mr. Octavio, what's your school, what's on School Street?
912 schools.
It was 901 Gray Street, correct?
What's your address?
I live at 910 Gray, but my other house is at 907 Gray, the one that's open.
907.
That's the piece of property that runs into School Street. And what am I supposed to do? All you people, all this guy Bernstrom is, oh, it's gonna cost you more money, it's gonna cost you more money. Where I presented it, it was perfect, he told me. And then all of a sudden, some lawyer said, it's not, oh, I don't like that, I was here for 20 years. This is how people treat constituents of this community.
We're hearing about it. Let's look into it.
But one other thing, while I'm still here, was on Gray Street, there are the old sycamore trees. I think you all know them, they're gigantic. Well, they all hang over and half of them fall, pieces are falling off of it. I've complained to the ordinance people about this problem and nothing's been done. And one of these days, it's gonna come down on somebody's head or somebody's car. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bill Emery Ball. A week or so ago, I was at Board of Health meeting. And one of the conversations there was in reference to playground equipment. And the neat topic came up, or I should say, didn't come up about playground equipment. Or lack of playground equipment, and it was in reference to adult equipment. If you notice in other playgrounds around the county and whatnot, there's items there for adults to use where they go in and they do stretching and things like that. Something that I noticed in meetings and things around here that involve playground. The term adult equipment has been minus in the design of the playground going on around here. And I brought that up to the Board of Health Committee here, and they kind of took interest to that topic. And they made comment, well, you know, just mention it here. So that's what I'm doing, is kind of bringing it here. I know someone's here, maybe the committee can maybe think about that, moving forward here with the parks going on. There's not a lot of equipment needed for that, but it's something that I think is a viable thing for the parks around here. And then Susan, Councilman Sounder made a comment about requirements for election around here, and something that hit my fancy here. She made comment about 2 years residency for that. I don't know where you come up with the requirements around here, but I know as a resident here that basically was born here in Newcastle. I know in my opinion, I think people need to earn their stripes to do anything like that around here. And I'll be quite honest with you, 2 years, in my opinion, you haven't earned your stripes in the city of Newcastle to run for office in Newcastle. That's my opinion. I don't know where you may have gotten that if you talk to residents around here. But I would be honest with you, I don't think the majority of people in Newcastle would think 2 years is enough to earn stripes to run for any office in Newcastle. I personally think 5 would be a minimum. That's just my opinion. But that's just my opinion. Thank you very much.
Real fast, 2 years is what's in the current code.
In the current code, right.
And the state only requires 1 year.
Right.
So
The codes are made
Newcastle's
to be changed,
already,
right. The codes can be
Newcastle's
changed.
already exceeding that.
Right, thank you, though, thanks.
Charter, excuse me, charter.
George, okay, thank you.
Valerie Leary, 201 Providence Street. Council President Platt, Councilperson Souter, Devonta, and Day, Chief McCabe, and Mrs. Carlin. I'd first like to thank my supporters as well as everyone who came out to vote this past Saturday, regardless of your candidate. Your involvement in the city is what makes this a great place to live. As we get closer though to the 2025 election, I would like to examine and figure out some ideas on how to engage more residents to vote. And so any ideas? I'd like to thank the Board of Elections and all the poll workers. It was a long day for everyone. I'd like to congratulate Angel Ramos Jr. on a great campaign. As we know, it's a very close race, and Mr. Ramos brought a lot of residents to the table. Our city is a wonderful patchwork of neighborhoods with their own personalities, their own issues, their own ideas. And I encourage you all to reach out with your questions and concerns, and to please attend the council meeting whenever you can. Please keep in mind, I'll not have access to a city email address until I'm actually sworn in, so please be patient. And based upon some emails I've already received, please remember that the mayor is not law enforcement. We have no authority as such. So when there's an emergency or if you need an officer to address the situation, please dial 911. Finally, I'd like to thank my husband, Mark, and my son, Eric, who have been ever supportive and my best cheerleaders.
Route North East Third Street, three things. Number one, last month it was brought up, a lot of complaints about the flooding on Route 9. I made a couple calls. Did anybody on city council call any of our state reps or come up with any more information that that would be helpful, or just curious? I'm guessing not. Okay. I did. Did anybody? I'm just curious. Did anybody remember calling your state reps, because that was a big thing at the meeting last month? Well, I did. I spoke to Mr. Cook, and I spoke to one of Nicole Ford's reps. So I haven't heard back, but they know who I am. Okay, so yeah. I don't know. I was just curious. I don't have anything more to add to that. I know everybody's kind of still thought about the flooding. Also, any truth to rumors going around? Maybe I'm the only one in town that doesn't know, but are there plans for apartments to go in down where that old, I guess was a liquor store, is closed up recently down in that area? Could be just rumors. Are there anything back in these up or not?
Not the bright light.
It's at the county. It's in the county.
Just rumors, but I should not worry myself.
Please, no comments. Please, no comments, Floor. That's in the county.
Sorry,
That's in the county.
okay.
That's just not.
That would be out of your
Correct.
Okay. Since these are the only public comments, are we allowed to ask if there's anything or get any information about Mr. Day's proposed ordinance, or we just have to wait and?
You have to wait until the public hearing. There'll be a public hearing on it. You'll get to comment at that time.
Mr. Miller, you may have been a little late coming in, and this has been explained a couple of times. There's just a first reading. That's lets you know that something's
I
going to
got
happen.
that. I got that.
Then there is a public hearing, and then there is a second reading. Still take comments, council discussion, and then we put on an agenda for a council meeting and voted upon that. Okay, so there'll be plenty of time to see what there is.
Okay, good deal. That's all. Thanks.
Anyone else?
May I?
You may, sir.
I wanted to make sure, well, I got the chance, but,
I can do this in 3 minutes. I just wanted to make sure, and that's why it's vital that I clarify the exchange that just happened. Because I know there may be some background that folks don't understand, and the way that I was introduced into that discussion was a little disturbing. I was contacted by the local newspaper and told that an editorial was going to be written that suggested that somebody running for mayor tried to fix a
Chief, I want to clarify that. It said Angel Ramos would never do this, never do
All right, I'm
that.
going to paraphrase that. So I'm certainly not, I'm not taking sides here, but I want to make sure people understand is when I'm asked a question, I'm going to answer. Transparency also means vulnerability. You just got firsthand look at what vulnerability means. This is why a lot of police chiefs shut their door and don't answer their phones. I will never do that. If I'm asked a question, I'm going to answer. The question was I part of anything where a ticket got fixed or a tow got fixed or anything like that? The answer was no. You post what you want to post, you say what you want to say. I will never interfere with your First Amendment rights. There was no suggestion of retribution. The only suggestion was if I'm called out and accused of anything, I'm going to defend myself. I said that August 1st, 2018, when I was appointed. This profession is taking a beating. It is taking a beating. We cannot find people to do this job, and it's because of exchanges like that. People are afraid to do this. You have thoughtful people in the city that just spoke tonight talking about board of elections. We're chasing these people away with stuff like this. The reality is, I did not take sides. I was not threatening anybody. I answered a question. People are allowed to say what they want to say, but if you're going to call my agency out, you're going to call me out. I'm going to defend myself. That's the answer. I did not fix the ticket. I think you all recognize that I'm not easy to access when it comes to you know, this person's in trouble or what's happening with this criminal activity. I don't speak to those things. We let the processes run themselves out. So I understand the emotion is high. I respect both sides of it, but I just wanted to make sure the way that my name got introduced into that exchange was a little disturbing. I hope folks understand the background behind that. The newspaper person asked me a question and I answered.
That's what
I have yours.
Negative Housekeeping, 141 East Third Street. I wanted to also thank the Board of Elections and everyone who ran, everyone who came out and voted. And I have to climb on board and say exchanges like that make us not want to be involved in city government. I was literally thinking, are the cops in the room gonna have to stand up and start forcing out? What's happening here, right? That's not a professional way to conduct yourself. And I'd also like to request that going forward, we think about keeping city council meetings to city business. That's all. Thank you.
Anyone else? Council approval, and if it's okay with Mr. Mataway, he has some personal ties to ovarian cancer. And I found he's asked me a couple questions every year about this one coming up. And Mr. Walton, is it okay if a civilian read the proclamation, or does it have to come from one of us?
No, I
I
don't have a problem.
I just counsel okay with that? Sure. Mr. Mataway?
Thank you, Mayor Flag. Thank you, council. Thank you, city administration and government. Thank you, fellow citizens of the city of Newcastle. We are a city of neighborhoods. We are a community. We have a variety of different thoughts and opinions as seen here today. But my hope and all of our hopes should be that we come together and stand unified in respect to things like cancer, battling cancer. My mother-in-law lost her battle to ovarian cancer before she was 40 years old. And I will now be reading a proclamation as prepared by the city. In recognition of September as Ovarian Cancer Awareness Month in the city of Newcastle, in support of the Turn the Town Teal ongoing awareness campaign. Whereas the city of Newcastle would like to recognize Turn the Town Teal awareness and research campaign. Now in the 17th successful year of raising awareness for ovarian cancer, and it is often silenced the symptoms. And whereas ovarian cancer is often referred to as a silent disease, as there is no early sign detection test for ovarian cancer, and symptoms are often vague and subtle. And whereas, if detected in early stages, the survival rate of ovarian cancer is 90 to 95%. Yet the 5-year survival rate after detection of advanced disease is unfortunately only 28%. Making this early detection awareness campaign essential. And whereas the city of Newcastle will participate, and I'll repeat this, whereas the city of Newcastle will participate, this is our part, in Turning the Town's Teal campaign with teal ribbons adorning downtown structures. Now therefore, it will be proclaimed that on this day, 8th day of August 2023, the city of Newcastle declares September as Ovarian Cancer Awareness Month in the city of Newcastle and supports the Turn the Town's Teal awareness and research campaign. Thank you.
I have the email in front of me, but I think it's the 25th of August that they're going to be doing that. They normally meet at town hall like 2 o'clock, but I'll have that up on the website.
Mr. Council President, point of order, because I haven't been here that long.
Okay.
Usually vote to approve proclamation.
No. No, we just make them. Okay. Next is this comprehensive land use plan, annual report, Mr. Rogers.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the council. Mayor-elect Leary,
What you have in front of you is the municipal comprehensive land use plan annual report. It is a report that's required by state law. The Office of State Planning and Coordination administers the requirement. And what it is every year is they send out a questionnaire to all the municipalities in the state, asking questions regarding implementation of your comprehensive plan. Because the section that requires it is under the planning commission section in the state code. Typically, the planning commissions prepare the annual report and they send it to their legislative body for their blessing, and then we will send it on to the state planning office. So the format is they provide a series of questions regarding, how is your implementation going with your comprehensive plan? I help the planning commission prepare the report. What we have done in the past and what you have in front of you is we select certain goals and strategies, we list them, and then we provide the certain, whatever status is of that particular item in your comprehensive plan. So what you have in front of you, the numbers are the questions that are in the questionnaire that's presented to us. The italics in black is what is the goal or strategy that we thought was perfect. And the red is the status of that, sort of the live status. This year, the state planning, Office of State Planning added a very specific series of questions about affordable housing. They didn't just ask, tell us about affordable housing. They went into our comprehensive plan and picked out certain strategies, in our plan and said, what is the city doing about this? What is the city doing about that relative to affordable housing? And those answers, if you will, are in this report. It's not legally binding. It's just a way of state planning to keep an ear to the ground of how the municipalities are going. At the end, you can see, they offer their assistance. Is there anything that the municipality needs that the state planning and other state agencies can help with? So it's a way for them to keep in touch with the municipalities and keep tabs on where particular items are in one's comprehensive plan. I'm certainly not going to go over all the questions or answers. I'll just, answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions from Mr. Rogers?
Okay, no, I don't have any questions on the content. I just have a technical question. Okay, it'll be quick. Shall I go first?
Ask ladies first.
Okay. And this isn't so much you as it's whenever this was prepared, the mayoral position is done as vacant. And I don't know what the date this is due, but might we wait until we have a sworn in mayor so we can tell them who our mayor is?
Yeah, the planning commission, they approved it on June 26th.
Right, at that point it was vacant.
Yes, yeah, it's technically due, July 1st, but state planning is never.
They're never on time anyway.
And that is the 10th.
17.
17th.
Is that correct, Ms. Leary? The swearing in?
Oh, I'm sorry.
The swearing in is the 17th?
17, 6 p.m.
I don't think state planning will have a problem with
Okay.
My two questions are, and I don't know, this might be for Mr. Bartel, but I'll still go ahead and ask. And one of the goals that they were asking that they struck down, I'm trying to see what page it is, but it's goal G11-1, that increases affordable opportunities for home ownership. Let me just try to find it. What our response for status was within the DVP, the city waives half of the city realty transfer tax for first time home buyers. So my question was, is there any, data there that we can look into for, so I don't know, this is just for Mr. Bartel, if you can pass on, to see, on there. And then the question for G13-3, to see what page that is on. Page 3 of the report that talks about explore the development and potential funding of new community-wide recreation facilities. It talks about Battery Park Playground. So I just wanted to propose that this section be expanded upon to include details about new grants that were awarded for the playground. And plans to install the new equipment by the end of December 2023. So thank you.
Right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
As it's been brought up a couple times, we're gonna have the first reading of ordinance 540. Do I have a motion to read the ordinance?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
We're gonna read it by title only. An ordinance to amend section 230-61 to require the submission of a concept plan in conjunction with certain petitions to amend the zoning code. There will be a public hearing scheduled on that in the near future, and then that's when we'll take comments and we post up on our website. And there, like I said earlier, there will be a second reading of this at a later date also.
Mr. President, I just want to add, it also goes to the planning commission for recommendation.
Okay. Well, that's after it goes through us.
Before your public hearing.
Correct. Right, okay, thank you. Did we ask any questions on that? Is that a typo? No, we don't use let it right there, so you go before. Resolution 2023-23, resolution to designate 3 police vehicles owned by the city as surplus property and authorizing the disposal of said surplus property. Do I have a motion to read the resolution? Motion.
Second.
Whereas the city of Newcastle owns 2008 Harley Davidson FLH 2008 Lexus LS and a 2006 well utility trailer for which is no longer needed. And whereas the city council has determined these vehicles represent surplus assets and should be liquidated and disposed of. Now, therefore, hereby resolved, the city council does hereby approve the sale and disposal of the following vehicles: a 2008 Harley Davidson FLH VIN number 1HD1F HM128Y6869 618 94 2028. Sorry.
618694.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you, sir. 2008 Lexus LS, VIN number JT GL46 F285022054. 2006 well utility trailer, VIN number 1WC2 or C200B17 date 0009428. That is further resolved that the city administrator shall have the authority to market and sell these vehicles at a public or private sale upon such terms and conditions as the city administrator deems appropriate at his sole discretion. Any questions on these vehicles? Motion to approve the resolution. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we also have a resolution 2023-24, a resolution approving the appointment of Gordon Taylor as city clerk, pursuant to section 4 of the city charter. Motion to read the resolution.
So moved.
Second.
Whereas section 4 of the city charter requires that the city council to appoint a officer of the city who has the title of city clerk, and whereas this position of city clerk has become vacant due to retirement of the previous clerk, and whereas the city clerk's duty shall be specified in the city charter and the code and otherwise determined from time to time by city council. Whereas the appointment of the city clerk shall serve an indefinite term at the resignation, inability to serve, death, or until removed from our office by the affirmed vote of 4 members of city council. And whereas the newly appointed clerk will take office on August 9, 2023. And whereas the city clerk or city council hereby confirms the appointment of Gordon Taylor to the city clerk of the city of Newcastle effective August 9, 2023, expiration date determined by the current elected council. Any questions on this? Were you guys reason we did do this, just to let you know, city clerk was a position that really. You know, all clear to the resolution? Ayes have it.
Second.
All in favor? Meeting adjourned.